Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Mick Alphaneme. So in that last video, which by the way, if you enjoy any part of this video, I would appreciate it if you click that little like button down there. Thank you so much in advance. You know I appreciate it. But in that last video, you saw the article I posted where Christine Lagarde, who is now the head of the European Central Bank, who was former head of the International Monetary Fund, was voicing concern that crypto could take over and dominate and render the banks useless. You read the words from that leader's mouth, that banking leader's mouth. So it's not just Alphaneme who said it anymore, is it? No. Even though I've been saying that for a year and people have been telling me, no, Alphaneme, the banks aren't going anywhere. The banks could never get taken over. And hoping and praying that everything continues to stay the same because they like to exist within a comfort zone. I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. That's right. I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. That's life. That's the world. Change, constant change is the only constant. If it's the only constant, then it has to be normal. Therefore, I should get used to what's normalized. I'm talking about normalized through reality, not through falsehood, not through the forcing of facades. Change is constant, but you read it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. The banks are in trouble. They're looking for a life raft, even though everybody else is still trusting them with their money. These are facts, ladies and gentlemen. How do you have liquidity if your money is fake? The rest of the world has begun to move to a gold-backed system. You saw, I showed you the article also, where Russia has already begun the process of commodity-backed digital assets. Already. It's official. And yet the West is still playing with fake money. Where's that liquidity coming from? This is why they're trying to stack as much gold as possible. But here's another thing to consider. If you're on the chessboard, and this is definitely a chessboard, if you're on the chessboard and you're making so many enemies that more than 40% of the population is going to have a problem with you at some point. 40% of the population of the world. Because right now, even with the countries that are in the BRICS nations right now, that's over 40%. I showed you that document also. That's a fact. The BRICS nations right now represent over 40% of the world's population right now. And that's without the other individuals that are going to sign up. Some of them are going to sign up because they just want to. It's advantageous. Some are going to join out of necessity. If you use your deductive reasoning and you take a gander at some of the control mechanisms that have been attempted to be instituted within the West, that goes against all of what they set as a standard before and what their forefathers have set before, it makes one question. Wait a minute. What are they preparing for? Why all these control mechanisms? Why all the reference to chaos? Every single one of them has said something akin to, even Denell Dixon was speaking like this recently, has said something akin to never let a good crisis go to waste. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Don't get me wrong, we've been through some things. But they continue to prepare as though something major is on the horizon. We're going somewhere with this. Follow me, if you will. I showed you what Bill Gates said, didn't I? And I believe that that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as the possibilities of what they believe could be coming. As far as anything that could shake up the earth, shake up the boat, so to speak. So much so that it would cause bank runs the likes of which you've never seen. I think that's what they're preparing for. In the changing of every age, there's always one event like that. Now, I say that because the debt The world debt is so high, they can't kick that can down the road much further. When you have a debt and it's not issued in your currency and your currency is not the world reserve currency, then you have to worry about paying that debt. People oftentimes wonder why the United States doesn't have to worry about the high debt that it has and paying it off as of right now. And it's only because it is the world reserve currency, the dollar. So their debt is within their own currency. Therefore, they don't have to worry about paying it. They can print that money anytime they want. There is no one to hold them accountable since they're the number one world power. But when the dollar is no longer the world reserve currency, that's when problems are going to occur and the debt must be paid. But it can't be paid. It can't. It's too much. Keep an eye on how the politicians are taking advantage of the sinking ship. The ship is sinking, so they're squeezing as much out of it as they can. They continue to just spend trillions of dollars, most of which are not truly a benefit to their people. It's not. Trillions, while trillions of dollars have just poof, gone missing. How do you lose trillions of dollars? People have to pay attention to this. What we're bearing witness to, and I have to be careful how I say this, but what we're bearing witness to right now is the implosion of the system in the biggest, I'm going to use a phrase, but you should understand what I'm trying to convey here. I'm going to use the phrase Ocean's 11. What we're possibly witnessing is the biggest Ocean's 11 ever. You get what I'm saying? Why? Because they understand that everything must be reset in order for them to continue forward. This happens theoretically in conjunction with the advent of the new financial system. I could be wrong. Trillions disappearing. That's not the only time that large allotments of money have disappeared. Let me tell you something. It just doesn't happen. It's not possible. That's not possible. If something goes missing, it's because they wanted it to go missing. So that will happen in correlation, theoretically speaking, with the advent of the new financial system. Because once that comes online, everything else is rendered irrelevant. And it is, how can I say, standard? It's typical for lots of information to go missing during the institution of a new system. So then at that point, it doesn't matter, right? Who's going to stop them? Who's going to? Just thoughts. When one system is about to end. So the banks, back to the banks. The banks are in trouble. Big trouble. If they implement the new financial system, even implementing the new financial system, I said this last year, they will become the new financial system. I don't think you understand what I mean by that. I don't think that the iteration of the banks you see now is what's going to be in the future. I think crypto eats them up. I think the money is so good at that point, they don't even care that crypto eats them up. And when I say crypto, I mean the bank coins. They will be completely absorbed. Over time, this is not going to happen all at once, but over time. That's what Christine Lagarde was worried about. Notice how after that, she got quiet. She never mentioned that again. Now, I'm going to skip through some of this here. This article here is titled XRP Readies for a 2023 Move as Buying Power Resurfaces in Market. So what they're going to talk about here is all the USDC that's moving around, USDT, all these stable coins that people are getting ready Every time there's a lot of stablecoin activity, that's because people are preparing to buy, to strike when the iron is hot. That makes perfect sense to me. 2023 could be a massive year. The catalysts are there. There's catalysts for, obviously, for the bank coins, the SEC case. That's the major catalyst right there. Regulatory clarity possible. That's 2. Multiple different catalysts for Bitcoin. That's 3. So, I mean, you have to keep yourself privy and abreast of what's going on, of course. But nonetheless, people are getting prepared just in case. And we have this little post here from Stellar. And they showed how many anchors they have here. 60 plus anchors. Around the world, very strategic. Southeast Asia, Europe, all throughout Africa, Latin America, Central America, United States, and in Canada as well. They're spread out everywhere. It says here, anchors continue to serve as the backbone of Stellar, doubling since the previous year. It's now easier than ever to become an anchor with the launch of the Stellar Anchor platform. This is very good. I like to see this. I want to see a little bit more of it. I think that we will. I'm looking forward to hopefully some big announcements from Stellar. Hopefully, 2023, 2024. Of course, Stellar is just one of many companies building on the Stellar blockchain. So we have to look out for a myriad of different companies and possible announcements and activity from them. So everything is looking good right now, in my humble opinion. We'll just go from there. So now let's get to this document, because I really wanted to talk about this. I mean, it's an eye opener. So we have, throughout the last year and a half, tried to keep up our best with the Basel Committee. This document is from the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. It's titled Prudential Treatment of Crypto Asset Exposures, December 2022. And it goes, in June 2022, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision issued its second consultation on the prudential treatment of banks' exposure to crypto assets. After considering the feedback from stakeholders to the consultation, the committee has now finalized its prudential standard, which has been endorsed by the committee's oversight body, the group of governors and heads of supervision. This is a major committee. What they say is going to be implemented, shall be implemented by the banks. Major. Let's continue on here. This document sets out the final standard, which the committee has agreed to implement by January 1st, 2025. So we have another date to add to our calendar. Section 2 here is titled Structure of the Standard. This is where you want to start listening. Holy smokes. Let's get into this here. The structure of the standard is unchanged from the proposal set out in the second consultation. Under the standard, banks are required to classify crypto assets on an ongoing basis into 2 groups. Get ready for this. Group 1 crypto assets, those that meet in full a set of classification conditions. Group 1 crypto assets include tokenized traditional assets. That's one. We're in deep with that when it comes to the bank coins, of course. Group 1A, and crypto assets with effective stabilization mechanisms. You mean like exchange rate guarantees? Is that possibly a part of that stabilization mechanism? I know also they're talking about stable coins as well. I know that something that's pegged to something. That's key. Stabilization mechanisms. It just has to be pegged to something. But they're going to get to that. Don't worry. Group 1 crypto assets are subject to capital requirements based on the risk weights. Group 1 crypto assets are subject to capital requirements based on the risk weights of underlying exposures as set out in the existing Basel framework. It's Group 1. Sounds like the bank coins to me. And capital requirements are nothing for us at all whatsoever, because we have liquidity at all times. Thank goodness for instant liquidity, on-demand liquidity tokens, right? Group 2 crypto assets, those that fail to meet any of the classification conditions. Regular crypto. As a result, they pose an additional and higher risk compared to Group 1 crypto assets, and consequently are subject to a newly prescribed conservative capital treatment. Conservative capital treatment, which means those regular crypto that are not bank coins, they're not going to get almost any bank money. That's number one. That's concerning. Number two, the banks are taking over crypto, as we said that they would try and they would attempt to. Which means that if they don't want you to have that crypto, the majority of the people in the world who actually use banks to do everything, so they're not going to use some exchange they never heard of, and which makes it very, a lot of exchanges are not even that easy to use. So they're not going to choose that. They're going to use their bank. And the bank's going to say, no, you can't buy that. And they're just going to block your transaction. They're already doing it. So now they can block transactions so you can't buy that particular asset. And two, they themselves are not going to put money into it. That equals what? Even without regulatory clarity, that equals a lot of dead crypto. Theoretically speaking, keep that in mind. But then that means what? With the ones that are regulated, compliant, the bank coins, all that money is going to flood into the bank coins. Theoretically speaking, what does it do to that price? Am I reading this right? Are you seeing this? Well, let's continue on here. And we said similar things, but we've said similar things in the past, but we're having it confirmed now. We have their actual words now to back everything up. In addition to any tokenized traditional assets and stablecoins that fail classification conditions, like algorithmic stablecoins, of course, Group 2 includes all unbacked crypto assets. A set of hedging recognition criteria is used to identify those Group 2 crypto assets where a limited degree of hedging is permitted to be recognized. So here's more proof of what I'm saying. Here's another bullet point at the bottom of the page, page 1 actually. Group 2 exposure limit. A bank's total exposure to Group 2 crypto assets must not exceed 2% of the bank's tier 1 capital and should generally be lower than 1%. Non-bank coins aren't going to get a drop, or they're going to get less than a drop of the capital that they should be probably getting access to. Them banks are going to shut them out. This is why I referenced the article that I put in the video yesterday, where they said they viewed crypto as a threat. The only ones that clearly are not a threat are the ones that are trying to help the banking system survive the onslaught. And who is that? That's your XRPs, XLMs, Algorands, Hederas, Cellos, Quants. Banks breaching the 1% limit will apply the more conservative Group 2B capital treatment to the amount by which the limit is exceeded. Other elements, next bullet point. Other elements of the standard include descriptions of how the operational risk, liquidity, leverage ratio, and large exposures requirements should be applied to banks' crypto asset exposure. Now, this is very interesting here. Pay close attention and tell me this doesn't sound like they're talking about XRP. The Group 1 classification conditions set out in the second consultation included a requirement that crypto assets with stabilization mechanisms must pass, and not the stabilization mechanism aspect. Let's continue on. Must pass a redemption test and basis risk test. The objective of the redemption test is to ensure that the reserve assets are sufficient to enable the crypto assets to be redeemable at all times. On-demand liquidity, redeemable at all times. That price is going to explode, in my humble opinion. You could also say one-to-one back stable coins also qualify for this as their stabilization mechanism. But here's the problem with saying that. I can say that XRP is redeemable at all times better than I can stablecoins. Why? Because there's on-demand liquidity. In stablecoin, one-to-one backed stablecoins just don't have that. There can be a bank run and they can be depegged. We've already seen it. One-to-one backed or not. They can be depegged. They already have been. Whether it's by a little or a lot, it doesn't matter. It proves the point that there can be bank runs. When those reserves run low, then what? And it has been discussed before. Bank runs, not on algorithmic stablecoins, on one-to-one backed stablecoins. So if all of us pull our dollars out, then what happens to your company? It's the same thing that the banks do. It's the same problem the banks have. Same problem. Bank runs. They are vulnerable to bank runs, but XRP is not, because of on-demand liquidity and guaranteed exchange rates. And there's a lot of other things they have. They actually have a lot of patents. Actually, there's a lot more patents that Ripple has other than just ODL. But ODL is just the most popular one because that's the one that's going to bring in the big money, possibly, right? So when I read this, I see XRP written all over this. It's just my humble opinion. So it says here, crypto assets to be redeemable at all times, including during periods of extreme stress. See what I'm saying? That doesn't apply to, I don't think really any stable coins, because they're vulnerable to bank runs under extreme stress. So for the amount to which the crypto asset is pegged, the basis risk, which is a quantitative test based on the market value of the crypto asset, aims to ensure that the holder of a crypto asset can sell it in the market for an amount that closely tracks the peg value. All right, now they're starting to give a little breathing room to the one-to-one backed stablecoins, which are just CBDC, light versions of CBDCs. That's all they are. The committee noted that in the second consultation that it was considering as an alternative to the basis risk and redemption risk test, a requirement for stablecoins to be supervised. Keep in mind, there is no set definition for stablecoin where it has to be pegged to $1 or €1 or $1 Australian dollar or Canadian dollar, however you want to put that. They just have to be stable. And remember, this is not e-money. We're not talking about account-to-account transfers. E-money is different than digital money. The Bank of International Settlements has clarified that to you. So when we're talking about digital money, we're talking about something that's supposed to be complementary to cash, which is why $1 has to be clarified as right now. One USDC is equivalent to $1. But that doesn't mean there can't be other offerings in the future. Like I said, for easeability, this is why they said XRP functions better at a higher price. It can be a high price stablecoin. We've said this many times before. A lot of my peers have discussed things like this. But when you think about it in that way, you think about XRP in that way, or any of these bank coins, let's say you had, let's play this game. Let's say you have USDC as the dollar offering to move large amounts easier. Let's say you had, and I'm going to try to be reasonable here, XRP pegged to $100. The equivalent stablecoins are the digital equivalents and complementary partners to cash. So you can have XRP stabilized at $100. You can have Algorand stabilized at $20. You see where I'm going with this? Just like legal tender now. A legal liability, a CBDC is a legal liability of the central bank, right? Legal tender. Right now, what's their legal tender? Like $1, $5, $10, $20, $100, right? So you let USDC, which, like I said, the Bank of International Settlements said it themselves, is a light version of a CBDC. Stablecoin, and the Fed said it also, that stablecoins could theoretically be used as CBDCs, like light versions, retail CBDCs. That's retail. But you can also have, to move around value a little bit easier, have it a little bit easier, more easily traced, to have it more easily complementary to cash, $5 peg stablecoin. $20 peg stablecoin, $100 stablecoin. And it doesn't have to be called stable coins. Doesn't have to be called that. It could be called something else. Who knows? But they can have that. But if we're going to be stabilizing those prices anyway, then by their very nature, they're stable coins. So if you have the price of XRP and Quant rising up high, and Quant is a whole different beast. I'm not even going to try to put a price on Quant, honestly, because how high that can go, it's mind blowing, but we have to wait and see and hope for the best. But so far they've been looking good. But all of these bank coins are going to try to stabilize at a much higher place. They have to. One, they function better at a higher price. I don't need 1 million XRP, right, to send $1 million. That's silly. We're looking for efficiency. That price has to go up. I use less XRP to send a higher amount. So if XRP's bread and butter are the banks and interbank payments wholesale, then we're looking at the stabilization at a very high price. You get where that's going? Not only to stabilize it at a high price because it's more efficient, but also to back up the liquidity that is needed for all of these banks. There is no way they allow that opportunity to slip by. And once again, on-demand liquidity is patented. So they're going to take it out of retail's hands by buying it up, possibly. Theoretically speaking, there's no guarantees. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Make your own decisions, okay? Just share my thoughts. But they would, like I said, if they're using it constantly, that price is going to go up just based on that constant use and that high value going through them. But a lot of them are going to be taking massive amounts of XRP off the market, using it in closed ecosystems, within their networks, within their supervisory circles. That also is going to raise that price up. Most people will sell at an early price, so I'm not worried about retail really at all, nor are the banks worried about retail. Only a small amount of people are going to hang in there to see those prices really, really explode. The initial excitement of the explosions when it goes to $3, $5, $10. And people have a ton of XRP, by the way. A ton of XRP, ton of XLM. Keep that in mind. They're sitting on a ton of it. So it doesn't even take a crazy price for them to see life-changing gains at this time. And because of the hard times, they're going to be like a thirsty person in the desert. They're going to be ready to take that sip of water. They're going to sell, cash out, whatever you want to put it. And then they're done. So that's going to remove it from the hands of anything that could destabilize it. Then the banks themselves want to offer staking. We already read it with our own eyes from the Bank of International Settlements. They will offer staking. Now, I'm not saying that their staking is going to be delicious because, you know, the banks like to cut you short of everything that they can. They're true business people. They're going to make sure they get the most and you get the least. That's just the nature of the business. But locking up that value within those systems, they can make it delicious for the people to not sell and just stake. They can do that. They can definitely make it have very delicious incentives for their fellow banks. Something else to consider. So, I mean, I'm thinking about all of that. I'm kind of just letting my mind flow here with you guys. today. As the banks are looking to take over crypto, keep this in mind of what they say here in section 60.20 on page 10. It says, banks on an ongoing basis are responsible for assessing whether the crypto assets to which they are exposed are compliant with the classification conditions set out in SCO 60.6, that's what we were reading earlier, to SCO 60.19, and the hedging recognition criteria set out in SCO 60.55. They have all these conditions that have to be met, and they're not, and those most crypto are not compliant. They're a risk. They don't have liquidity. It says these assessments will determine whether the crypto assets are classified Group A, 1A, 1B, 2A, or 2B. To this end, banks must have in place the appropriate risk management policies. They're looking for liquidity, security. They're looking for low risk. Regarding crypto assets to which a bank is already exposed to the implementation date of SCO 60, the bank must inform their supervisor. I told you those supervisory entities are powerful. They're running the show. They're the bullies on the block that are making all the rules for these banks. And before the banks collapse, they want to get the system up and running. But they have to bring all of these rogue banks into one accord. It's the big money game, people. Some people want to stay on the ship, the Titanic, not realizing it is sinking. There's a hole in the ship. The big banks, Bank of International Settlements, they're saying, hey, it's sinking. We need to go move to a new system. Implement the new financial system. You got 3 years. That's what they said, right? They said 2 to 3 years. Now you have the Basel Committee saying, hey, by 2025, you better have everything ready. The ship is sinking, people. Why do they need to implement it so fast? That's good for us because that means that money is going to flow. Theoretically speaking, no guarantees. The liquidity crisis that's going on right now. Unbelievable. I think the people are going to see that. First time you have any shakeup at all in the world, and people go to get their money out those banks, they're not going to be able to. Not going to be able to. Because the banks literally can't give it to you. They don't have it. Their fractionalized banking system is broken. They don't have that money. And people are just stacking. Like, I can't even believe how much money people are holding in these banks. Checkings accounts, savings accounts. Go get your 200K. I told you this before. Get your 200K. Why do you want it? Why do I want it? It's my money. Give me my 200K. We don't have it. A few days. But my life might be on the line right now. They don't have the money. Their system is in trouble, big trouble. So just be careful. Keep your eyes open. Stay privy and abreast of catalyst in these coming years. It's going to be very interesting watching global scenarios as the BRICS nations grow. You got battles going on in different places. There's a lot of politics being played. So this can all affect the banking system. Just keep your eyes open. Be careful. Guard yourself at all times. And may we have success in whatever we do. May we conquer everything that is in our sight. Nothing can stop us. Let's go into 2023 strong. Roaring like lions. Conquer 2023 just like we did all the other years. And we will be successful. Keep your chin held high. Keep your chest out. Walk with confidence. You step into a room, know that you are the lion in that room. Devour everything. Everything is yours. It's the mentality you have to have. You will win everywhere. Dominate everywhere. There's no friends in that business meeting. We could be friends later. Right now, we're going to do battle. Guarantee you, we go into that business meeting, we're going to make more money. We're coming in with facts. Not emotions. We're going to close those deals as we always do. And we're going to make the big money as we always do. So Now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, let's get to the money.